Anyways, let's take a look, shall we? So there's a video that I wanted to see. It was called Why Games Optimization Degrades and Who is to Blame. No, I don't think anyone said mac and cheese in here. But thank you though. Welcome, welcome. How you doing? I'm curious what this video is about. What's this all about?
If you don't live in a cave, you've noticed how badly optimized modern games are. Every year, the power of graphics card and their prices increase. The budgets of games and the time to create them are also growing. The only thing that doesn't grow is FPS. It is falling.
That is so
In
true.
recent years, we've seen a bunch of failed releases where poor optimization destroyed potentially good projects. It has become the norm not to play a new game as soon as it is released, but to wait months and sometimes years until developers can optimize it properly. Although new games look amazing, game studios forget about a very important element of a good gaming experience. The problem with poor optimization is that developers are actually alienating almost 90% of their player base. According to a January 2025 Steam survey, only about 10% of Steam users have hardware that can run these games on the recommended settings. The logical answer is to just buy a new PC. But it's not that simple.
Yeah, man, just drop $2,000+ on a new PC. You know, everything will be solved, you know? Everybody's got fucking $2,000. Oh, shit. Oh my god, I forgot. Oops, sorry about that. I didn't even notice. Sorry about that. But yeah, even then, like you can even see, let me see, hold on. So these people who are used like GPUs and stuff like that. Oh, that's interesting to see though. What's the percentage here? Yeah, enjoy, have a wonderful day, take care, be safe. AMD Radeon. Just don't be poor. Yeah. Just, it'll solve everything. Just don't be poor, guys. Just drop $2,000 on a new computer. Plus, 2,000 plus. Well, what is it? Computers now these days are like $8,000. Just casually just drop $8,000, you know? You'll be fine. You'll be fine, you know? You'll be fine.
The logical
I'm just
answer
saying.
is to just buy a new PC. But it's not that simple. New graphics card from Nvidia costs thousands of dollars, although there is no significant increase in power over the previous generation. The most expensive GPUs don't even break the 60 frames per second mark, without DLSS, which still works like crap. Although, we used to have enough 2 GB of video memory to play really awesome games in terms of graphics. But what killed the optimization?
That's a good question.
Why don't developers care about making their games run well and look good?
Well, it's because, wasn't there like a reason or so that like some of the education systems don't teach very well like stuff? Or, like very like how to optimize certain things, right? If I remember correctly, right? We have like certain like new people or like new workers now that they don't know how to properly actually optimize their settings now compared to back then, which was a little bit more different. I'm also curious because I know a lot of developers are moving over to the new Unreal Engine. I think I saw a specific video talking about it, that like the Unreal Engine is like super well unoptimized for like certain genres of games. Apparently, it's something in that sort of nature from the video I saw a while ago.
Good at the same time. Is it all about a secret conspiracy with Nvidia and AMD to simply increase sales of their hardware?
Nah.
Well, it's not really that simple. As with many other issues, it's not so black and white, and there are many reasons for the low optimization in most recent releases. The first of them is the upscaling technology. Over the past few years, artificial intelligence has been developing at an alarming rate. A couple of years ago, we were shocked that ChatGPT wrote us a poem, and now—
Is it? Okay, yeah. Just as I thought.
Now it creates entire codes and replaces most programmers. AI is used everywhere. We have videos,
That's true.
pictures, songs, and of course, graphics created by AI. The scaling technology in video games works like—
Yeah, but personally, like, how I specifically see AI, right? When I see AI itself, I think I'd rather work together with like have the raw performance and everything, and then have AI, you know, strong raw performance, and then AI coexisting with each other. But now with Nvidia specifically, they're just like, no, we don't have to try that hard anymore with like our GPUs for like raw power. Instead, we'll just use AI to do all the heavy lifting for us, you know? It should be always be coexisting together, you know? Always be like working side by side, not like have AI completely delete, you know, the people who worked on these specific things, you know, when it comes to like anything related to AI.
The game is launched at a low resolution, for
Especially
example,
with the GPUs
1080p,
too as well.
and then AI, such as DLSS or FSR, scales it to a higher resolution, for example, 4K. Theoretically, this will allow your game to look like it would in a normal resolution, but this is not quite true. Even at high resolutions, some problems become quite obvious. In Microsoft Flight Simulator, you can see flickering. You can also see it in Cyberpunk. Also, artifacts are especially visible in fast-paced scenes. The AI has to guess how the game will look like in a higher resolution, and as a result, with upscaling enabled, the game will never look the way developers intended. For me personally, it's quite important that the game has the right artistic direction.
Wow, you can definitely see like the difference between these three. Like just kind of like looking at the
And I
scaler.
can't help but feel that DLSS and FSR are quick and easy solutions to increase the frame rate that simply distort the original concept. You might be saying right now I can play GTA 6 on my shitty RTX 3060. And my answer to that is, short-term solutions cause long-term problems. Sure, upscaling technology allows gamers to avoid wasting their parents' savings on a new GPU, but this technology also encourages developers not to optimize their games, because they think, hey, these cocksuckers are going to turn on DLSS anyway, so the game will run well. But the problem with this technology are not only on PCs. The PlayStation 5 Pro, which is now the most powerful console on the market and costs over $1,000, also has its own AI upscaling known as PSSR, or PlayStation
Pisser!
Super Resolution. I remember back in 2020 when the PlayStation
Yeah, call it
5 was
pisser.
introduced, they were preaching that it was a huge step for gaming because developers no longer had so many graphical limitations on how they wanted their games to look. However, it soon became clear that the current generation of consoles could not run games in 4K and at least 60 FPS.
Yeah, but I'm like 4K is so like, isn't it still like, even up to today, isn't it like very niche or so for 4K? I'm like, I think I'd rather have like, what is it, 1440p at 60 FPS instead of having 4K, you know, trying to run it at 60 FPS. Because, you know, like, I don't know. Is 4K still niche, or is it actually like everybody has 4K now? I doubt it that everyone has 4K now these days. I feel like it still feels like it's a luxury, like still a luxury thing to have a 4K monitor or something like that. Because aren't they like what, more than like what, $800, $500 or something like that for a monitor? Well, depending on the monitor, of course, and the brand specifically. But I know that for a fact.
For years, the PS5 Pro came to the rescue, where Sony swore that finally, gamers would not have to choose between performance and quality, but they failed. Again. Now, console game developers are forced to adapt new releases to new compromise solutions like PSSR, a technology that only masks hardware limitations, not solves them. In fact, PSSR is a license for developers to be lazy. Why spend time fine-tuning performance if you can just throw the game on the market, add scaling, and claim it's optimization? In reality, what we have is a new console that they sell for twice as much as the regular version, but it can't run new games in 4K and 60 FPS. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, which is an incredibly good game, by the way, also works in the upscale thanks to PSSR, just like any other console. Only the Xbox Series S doesn't fuck with us and runs in native resolution. We're witnessing the console market degrading. We have moved from real technical breakthroughs to marketing promises that only mask real problems. But upscaling technology, which spoils the picture and allows developers to do nothing and rest more, is not the only thing that has killed optimization. Ray tracing. These two words have become mandatory in every presentation of new gaming technologies since 2018. And although marketers try to convince us that it is almost the holy grail of gaming, the reality is a bit different.
But like the problem is like, I feel like it's the same thing with like 4K, like RTX ray tracing is like, it's such a luxury thing, you know?
a look at what it is. Ray tracing is a method of light processing that tries to mimic its behavior in the real world. In
It's
fact,
cool
this is something that
to look
Pixar
at
has
it,
been
but,
using in
like,
animated films since
I
1999.
don't know. I
But
wouldn't
now
turn
that
it
this
on.
technology has burst into games, the main question arises. Is it really needed, or is it just a marketing illusion? Here is an example. Cyberpunk 2077. If you turn on ray tracing to the maximum, yes, the lighting looks fantastic, but it will cost you such frame drops that you will have the impression that you are watching a video that was shot in 1878, or
Yeah.
like you're playing on a Nintendo Switch.
Yeah.
What do we get in return? Puddles with better reflections? Okay, but will the average player notice? Most likely not.
Better
Unless you point it
lighting,
out
you
to
know,
them.
better
Look, the
stuff
glare's
like
now
that, you
displayed
know.
differently here. And now you have 15 FPS, so you can see it in more detail, loser. And the worst part is that some games don't allow you to turn off ray tracing at all. Star Wars Outlaws, for example, only offers a choice between minimum and maximum ray tracing. Why?
Really? Wow. I thought it was just the Indiana Jones video game was the one that had only, you know, you have to have RTX on, you know?
Why can't I just turn it off? Why am I forced to use DLSS or FSR upscaling just to compensate for the fact that the developers failed to properly optimize the game? But the main problem isn't even that ray tracing eats up performance, but it has become an excuse for lazy developers. Once
True.
upon a time, they created their own unique lighting methods and adjusted reflections manually.
Yep.
Half-Life 2, for example, had great plane
They're just
reflexes
lazy.
that looked quite impressive in 2004. And now, we just turn on ray tracing and forget about it. Another example is Alan Wake 2, one of the most beautiful games of recent years, which makes extensive use of ray tracing. It looks amazing if you have top-of-the-line hardware. But
Yep.
even with the RTX
That's true.
4090, it can produce a miserable 30 to 40 frames per second in 4K if you turn off DLSS. And if you have a mid-range card, don't even dream of smooth gameplay without upscaling. But when
Yeah.
we talk about the laziness of modern video game developers, of course, we have to mention the damn Unreal Engine 5.
Oh, is this gonna
The
talk
engine that
about it?
promised to change the gaming industry. When Epic Games first demonstrated it in 2020, everyone was excited. Dynamic lighting, billions of polygons, the revolutionary nanite geometry system, realistic lumen lighting, everything looked like a real leap into the future. We were promised that games would look better than ever,
Yeah.
and it would be easier for developers to create detailed worlds.
Yeah.
But here's the reality in 2025. Most games running on Unreal Engine 5 are terrible. We have unstable FPS, graphical glitches, blurring, artifacts, and simply unoptimized performance. So what went wrong?
It's the
Imagine being
engine.
given the perfect 3D printer that can print anything you want, with no limits. But then you find out that it's powered by a nuclear reactor that consumes more energy than an entire city, but still less than a new RTX 5090. Unreal Engine really allows you to create incredible detail. Its nanite system allows game worlds to contain tens of billions of polygons, and Lumen automatically provides photorealistic lighting. This is all great if you're making a CGI movie, but when it comes to video games, it creates serious performance issues. Previously, developers were forced to optimize their games, manually adjusting the geometry of models, coming up with interesting lighting methods, optimizing shadows and effects. It took a lot of time, but it allowed games to run stably. Now,
And since now, you know, since now Unreal Engine kind of does it for you, right? You don't even have to do any of that stuff. So this just proves that older devs were just built different compared to new devs now these days. Where the new devs now have everything a lot more easier, and the old devs didn't had it, but they had to learn how to make their games optimized or so. So they had to mess around with the lighting and the shading and the polygons and all this stuff to make it like a perfect, cool, awesome looking, you know, lighting, their own lighting scenes.
studios simply rely on nanite and lumen to automatically generate ultra-detailed graphics. But the truth is that even the most powerful graphics cards can barely cope with this automatic detail. The remake of Silent Hill 2, Stalker 2, Remnant 2, and a bunch of other projects from recent years, all these games are made on UE5 and suffer from the same problem: poor performance and strange artifacts. To hide all these shortcomings, the developers brazenly force you to play with TAA, temporal anti-aliasing enabled, which turns a clear picture into a soapbox. Why optimize if you can just throw in ray tracing and say,
Well, yes, you need an RTX 4090 for good graphics, and if you don't have one,
that's your problem. However, most gamers don't want to sell their left leg to buy a new RTX 50 for a few $1,000s. We are poor people after all, and I want all the new releases to run smoothly on my GTX 650. But what do I get in return? Unoptimized crap where 30 FPS is still good, and when you try to raise the frame rate, the game starts to look like any AAA game on Nintendo Switch. Video game development used to be an art of optimization. The game had to run smoothly, stable, and quickly, regardless of whether it was running on a powerful PC, a weak laptop, or consoles. Every byte of memory was worth its weight in gold. Every polygon and every texture was carefully balanced between quality and performance. Take Dark Souls, for example. The game ran on From Software's proprietary engine and, despite all its shortcomings, had stable performance even on weak hardware. The Last of Us is a technical masterpiece for its time. Naughty Dog squeezed the most out of the PlayStation 3, creating a game that looked better than most PC projects.
It actually looked really good back then in the PS3. I just hated how they constantly keep re-releasing it, you know, HD remastered.
Another optimization genius is Hideo Kojima,
True!
who showed a perfect example of a smart approach to performance in Metal Gear Solid 5. Fox Engine, which could produce incredible detail, but at the same time work smoothly on all devices, including the PS3. What's more,
crazy.
The adaptive display technology adjusted the graphics in real time so that the game always ran smoothly. But it's a new world, and in the new world, doing stuff well doesn't pay money. Making stuff fast, selling it fast, and making the next stuff is what pays money. Nowadays, games are released before they are properly debugged. And now add to that the rising prices of hardware, scalpers, and the general greed of corporations that want to sell more and more.
PS3 was hell to develop. The days before Upscaler, I don't think this issue is only the devs. Yeah, but I still think they're still hold accountable because I think they're lazy in order for them not to, like, you know, optimize their games. Because, like, holy shit, bro. I'm like, I thought for me personally, when I invested on my computer parts, I'm like, oh yeah, this is definitely gonna last me, you know, quite a bit or so before I upgrade, right? Was I hella wrong with that?
Long ceased to be affordable. Now it is simply a luxury. First and foremost, developers should think about a wide audience of gamers, not about what interested gaming journalists who can run the game on maximum settings will say about it.
That's interesting. What an interesting video. Is there a second? Is that a second one right there? And why games are degrading? Interesting. Let me see. Why AAA games are degrading and who to blame? Let me see.
Not so long ago, the release of a big game from a well-known studio was something incredible. We were waiting for it, we wanted to play it, but most importantly, we were sure that the next AAA game would be really good. But somehow, unnoticed, it all remained in the past. Nowadays, the budgets and development time of AAA projects have increased several times, but for some reason, the quality of these games is only decreasing. But why do most big...
Well, it's because of poor leadership. That's number one. Look at the 5090. The 5090 can't run Cyberpunk natively. We also got to watch out on the tech side. But even then though, you can. Let's be honest here. Even like, for example, Monster Hunter Wilds or so, that game is completely unoptimized. Not even the new GPUs can even run that thing at a stable, you know, stableness, because they'll dip down every so often, you know. That's the only thing, you know. It'd be like, there's a whole point for like the technology to be sold, you know, for cheaper as well at a lower price, which is the 3060 and the 3070, right? Apparently these are considered as low ranges or so, and then like 3080, well, 3080 and 3070 what super are considered as mid range, and then you got the 4090 or 5090, and you got like 4090 Ti or 3090 Ti. Basically, these are like the high end part, so. And like the games of those specific subjects should run better, like run the best of the best. Then the mid range should just run mid range, and then the low range should run low range, you know. But unfortunately, the low range can't even handle, you know, even some of the newer games. The mid range became the new low rank, and then the high rank became the new, you know, mid range now. So it's like slowly shifting to the right, you know, and then like usually the 60 series or the low end cards or so are having such a struggle fest to run these things, you know. Because everything has to look like, you know, photorealistic in graphics, you know? Someone at leadership on Capcom took too many corners, in my opinion. Like, everybody has been asking what happened after the betas or quality testing. Yeah, that's the one thing, too, as well. It's just, like, I feel like there just wasn't enough time to, like, optimize or not optimize, but, like, be able to... The degrading of AAA games, like, specifically from, like, a lot of these other games specifically, it's a lot of the new gen developers that come in. And apparently most of them don't even play the video game. Like, most of them actually straight up don't play the video games to make, you know, these games great. I definitely have to say it's definitely, like, leadership. You know, things have changed, you know, before then, right? Leadership definitely changed. Definitely the leadership is the ones who steer the ship and, you know, kind of, you know, go that. The suits also have a lot of power, so, you know, to tell what they should do, what they should not do. Or like as in like voting rights or so, and be like, oh, you should make me a live service game, you know, or something like that. Plus also like the inspiration to innovate is definitely probably one of the key factors for them not to, like, you know, take the base formula of what they learn or so and level it up to a new platform.
Projects fail so often lately, and why do so many gamers claim that modern AAA games are garbage? Before the state of the gaming industry became as bad as it is now, large publishers and their studios reached an ideal state for their business. They were able to secure their market position, a fairly stable profit margin, and protect numerous intellectual property. They became the main predators of the industry. However, the problem began when these large companies stopped competing with each other. Instead, they decided to simply claim market territories, like rulers trying to protect their tiny pieces of land on an island. We call these territories video game genres.
Yeah.
Have you ever noticed that some publishers only release a small number of games within certain genres? At first, you might think that developers are just releasing what they know, but the real problem is that when market presence begins to be fragmented, the need for innovation also decreases.
Yep.
In the early 90s, alongside the first Battlefield,
I also blame leadership
Dice
if
released Racing
you got a
Strike,
new dev, they haven't
Activision,
played your
together
games,
with
give
Call of
them a
Duty,
crash
created
course of it,
strategies
just
and
like how
games
the
based
new
on
yeah.
Madagascar and Ice Age cartoons.
Like a lot of these
However,
devs
the
don't
publishers
play
realized
the
quite
games.
quickly that it was much more profitable and safer to just occupy one niche and try to dominate it. So AAA companies grew and grew, unrestrained by the conflict of competition. But at the time, unbeknownst to anyone,
Oh, it's terrible in the FPS genre, to be honest. There's like literally no competition to compete with Call of Duty for them to like actually improve. Because Battlefield fucked up so many times, you know. X-Defiant is shut down, unfortunately. Well, will shut down, I should say. But yeah.
they began to stagnate. AAA games usually have large teams, expensive marketing campaigns.
Yeah,
huge
there
amounts
needs
of
to be
funding.
competition
The term
in the
was borrowed from
genres.
credit industry and
100%.
games when obese corporate bigwigs realized that video games were no joke, but a business.
Why do you think the indie game scene is a lot more popular than the AAA scenes? Because there's a lot of innovation, you know? There's a lot of competition. And AAA games, they don't really have to compete as much because they already have a big core fan base that will eat their slob every fucking year. I'm looking at you, Call of Duty. They'll just, and even like the sports games too as well. You know, every fucking year, you know? It's like they'll just... They fucking slobber that shit up. They'll eat that shit no matter what, you know? They love eating shit, you know?
Business that could make more money than Hollywood. For the big publishers, AAA means this is the safest investment.
That's also one of the things too as well. It's one of the things is that like I hate that Call of Duty went after the like they went into a genre just because that specific genre was making shit ton of money, which was the battle royale scene, you know? Fortnite exploded. Call of Duty saw that, and then they decided to make one because they want to fucking put their foot inside that fucking genre. And then now everybody else saw it, and then they also want to completely jump into that specific genre. And I'm just like, ugh. You can only have so much in the pie, you know? Like, it's just like a cherry pie or apple pie, you know? If Fortnite has half of that pie, that means the other half has to be split with all of these other specific games that are running or that are trying to compete in that genre, you know? It's just kind of like, but you can only have so much, you know? And also on top of that, fucking, ever since Call of Duty joined the Battle Royale scene, the degrading or so of the multiplayer genre has been going down the tanker. The funny thing about it is that this Call of Duty specifically, right, the one that just recently came out, the multiplayer is a little bit more better than the battle royale, which is very interesting. That means they just don't have enough hands-on or so to do both the battle royale and the multiplayer, because they're mostly focused on multiplayer stuff, you know.
You can make to make a profit. This is no longer the case. Today, AAA mostly indicates the aspirations and cost of the game, not how safe the investment is. From the 80s to the 2000s, there weren't many real commercial failures in games. Most of the failures were hardware related, bad consoles and bad business decisions.
Yeah.
But since the 2010s, game budgets have grown exponentially, and we've seen massive failures. And in the last 7 years, it seems that many beloved franchises have released what fans consider to be the worst parts. One of the biggest factors in the decline of AAA games is that they have become too big. For comparison,
True.
the good old World of Warcraft was created by a team of 40 people. A team of 100 developers worked on Half-Life 2, and now, more than 9,000 people were involved in the development of the shitty Diablo 4.
The problem is there's just too many cooks in the kitchen. Next COD will be better, trust. No, it will not. There's also a thing too as well, too many cooks in the kitchen, you know? It's always better to always have a nice small team most of the time, you know? Depending on the project itself, you know? Fortnite has the whole pie. These companies should realize that. Fortnite got money to pay all those licenses fees. Yeah, I'm like, Fortnite has has the biggest pie share in that specific battle royale genre, but then everyone else on the other side of the fence, they saw, you know, To Be No Thumbs, you know, becoming super popular, right? And then they all want a piece of that shit, you know? And it's kind of like, bro, everyone has their own specific place they need to be, I guess, you know, their own genres, right? They want to compete in those genres, but apparently they always want to compete in the battle royale scene, you know?
The same number of people in Activision's office are now deciding what the next Call of Duty cringe skins will be.
Really? This is the Activision picture here?
Number of people in Activision's office are now deciding what the next Call of
Game with Pride 2019. I see. So these are the people who play who quote unquote play Call of Duty. Remember, there was that one developer that was on Halo. He literally tweeted out saying, "Oh, I don't like, you know, making guns and stuff like that. It makes me feel like uncomfortable." And I'm like, okay, then go do something else, bro. I'm like, why are you a like part of the team developers making guns, you know? Yeah, he's like, oh, but at least Halo is different, you know? It's just like, you know, it's not real guns, you know, it's like fantasy guns. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Call of Duty cringe skins will be. Let us recall Starfield, which was developed for 7 years. The budget of this project was about $200 million. Yes, we have 1,700 planets to explore, but wasn't it better to just get 100 that
Yeah.
were actually good? AAA games have exploded in size, scale, and cost to an unprecedented level.
It's crazy. They think bigger is better. That's what these developers think. Is like, we got to make this big expansive world and like have so much shit, you know? It's like, no, we don't really need like a ton of like open world games, you know? They don't have to be fucking big or massive, you know?
Hand, a large team has the potential to create something truly
Hey,
incredible
Alpha.
to realize their greatest ambitions. But this depends on having a coherent vision.
Can't your studio co? Like for me personally, if I'm gonna do an open world thing, we're gonna take time making an open world, you know? I kind of wanted to be almost in like, kind of like in the same realm or kind of like in the same like polish and same quality as like The Witcher. So you know how like when you did side quests and stuff like that for The Witcher 3, and it would affect the story as well from some of those specific side quests. Like I remember that, you know? Like it's really cool, like personally, and then it leads you on to another quest, and then leads you on to another quest, another story, and you did some cool sideline or so, and it wasn't even part of the main thing, you know. It's the same problem that movie industry is facing, is too much money on the budget. Yeah, they're just wasting way too much money specifically on these games themselves. Yo, Wagwan fam, watch them ping vids and all that. Yeah, what are you talking about, Load? I have no idea what you're talking about. Going the Game Awards with her model on full screen. I doubt it. I doubt it, but you know, that'd be
among many
funny.
people, as well as the budget and resources to realize it. However, the more ambitious a project is, the more money is invested in it, and the more risky it becomes.
True.
Let's recall Concord, which was supposed to become Sony's new flagship in the hero shooter genre. Firewalk Studios joined PlayStation in 2023, and Concord was their debut project. According to the preliminary estimates, Concord's budget reached $400 million, making it one of the most expensive games in history. The development itself lasted about 8 years. And this sounds...
Dude, it's crazy how $400 million was wasted on this game. It's so crazy. Because how many maps did Concord come out with? Let me see. It just had 12. That's it. It just only had like 12 maps. Interesting.
strange, at least since even the largest projects like GTA...
And these are like mostly like arena style type of things. I'm just curious, like, what the fuck? Like, there's no way, like, hold on, let me see. So about the average or so by year is like almost 100K per year or so. So the United States range, so it's like 98, yeah, 98 to 150 every single year, so. Did have like no hands on it. I would be checking them weekly if that is the budget. Yeah, because I feel like there's no way, dude. There has to be something, like, it feels like it's been siphoned out, you know, somewhere else, you know? Either incompetent or the money laundering, I don't know. Or both. Yeah, it could be both, too. It's a good thing that Call of Duty Mobile is made by Timmy and not Activision, because not only that, it's not filled with wokeagen, and they also made the solution for minimizing the app size. I don't know, man. This game went terribly wrong, man. It was in development for such a long time, and then like they had to bring in like other devs specifically for this game to help out their game because their game was completely in shambles. So I don't know, dude. There's a weird mystery behind Concord, to be honest, on the at least the development of Concord.
Or Call of Duty operate with similar budgets and a much wider target audience. But despite many years of development and significant investments, in the first week of the game's release, it became clear to everyone that Sony had just fucked up almost $500 million. The peak of simultaneous players on Steam was about 700 people, and less than 2 weeks after the release, Sony announced the closure of the servers.
Well, it's just like nobody likes to play any of these characters. Was a game nobody wanted or asked for. Yeah, because when I specifically said this multiple times, right? When I saw it, when it popped up on the, what was it, Summer Game Fest? I think it was Summer Game Fest, right? I was like, oh, this is a pretty interesting game or so. And then they said, oh, it's a hero shooter. And I'm like, it's like, I don't know, man. Like, especially the character creation, well, the character designs anyway. The character designs of these characters were just not appealing whatsoever. I think the only one that's kind of like passable is the Asian girl, but that's about it, you know? She's the only one that's kind of sort of passable to some degree. Why would you take Destiny PvP and make it a solo game? Imagine you have to put Concord on your resume. Yeah, yeah.
And Concord became the first and last release from Firewalk Studios. But how could such
That's
a
crazy.
situation happen to a company as
They only made
experienced and large
one
as Sony?
game,
Why was Concord,
and that was it.
this random debut game from unknown developers, hyped up with such an atypical huge budget and high expectations? Well, this situation was not accidental, or just a bad strategic decision by Sony, and now you will understand why.
Well, it was a pretty bad strategical thing because who was it? The leader was like, they wanted to make Concord like basically like a new Star Wars genre franchise, so massive and everything, you know. Same thing with Unknown 9. They had everything like all planned out and everything before they even had their first game came out. And I'm just like, well, you guys are thinking way too far ahead or so with these video games. I'm like, first off, start off making a good game to begin with, number one, right? Before you start like expanding, you know, expanding this specific like game itself, before you start asking like, oh, we can have a TV show, we can have a cartoon Netflix series, or like we'll make like a comic book, you know, and all this other shit, you know, because that's what that was Unknown 9 for that specific one. And the same thing for Concord, they wanted to make Concord like some kind of like Star Wars level of success, you know. Crazy
COVID-19
imagination.
has changed a lot of things. People who were able to survive bought a hell of a lot of video games during this time, and some game companies decided to adjust.
That's true. That's true. Not even Battlefront can reach that high of success, you know?
They did make it the next Star Wars, Disney. It's gay, bland, and a failure.
I see. Yeah.
It's their business. They saw this as an opportunity to significantly.
But even then, on top of that, right? The developers are the ones who, like, if they want to accept that. Remember, right? These are consultants, right? They ask them for like ideas and stuff like that, and if they accept them, right? If the studio actually accepts them, you know, accepts their perspective and like their take on the game itself and all this other stuff, well, you have to blame the studio, well, the leadership of the studio, because they decided to go that specific way. Remember, right? Usually the head developer usually has a specific vision and a specific dream or so for their video game, right? And well, you know, they can ask other people's opinions about it, of course, right? They don't have to take their opinions if they don't want to, but if they do, well then, you know, Lord and behold, that's them. That's also the fault of them, because they've accepted that actual, you know, one, or at least like one person's, like, you know, depending like how many consultants they asked or so, it just, you know, it's them to blame or so, to only listen to them instead of their audiences, you know.
Increase investments,
Yeah, right.
production, and hire more employees. But of course, the boom in video game sales caused by the pandemic did not last too long.
Of course
Now
it didn't.
We're seeing its consequences. More than 20,000 layoffs in the next 2 years after the pandemic. More than 30 studios closed, and with it dozens of projects that were in development.
It's because they hired way too much.
Been pretty bad for game
because I remember like at the beginning of like during, well, not the beginning, but during the COVID thing or so, it exploded because everyone was indoors, right? So then these game developers are like, oh, we need to hire some more people or so we can shit out more games and shit like that, you know. But COVID, you know, we eventually got out of COVID, and you know, well, Lord and behold, they have all these extra people for no apparent reason, you know.
Perhaps during the pandemic, big publishers hoped that COVID would be around for a long time, but overloading teams with employees and billions of dollars is not some kind of magic recipe for success. In fact, it has put studios in a much more difficult and stressful position, because if a game doesn't sell well, it's the developers who are to blame, not shareholders who can't think strategically. Blockbuster development costs are out of control. According to a report by the British Competition Authority, one major studio reported that it costed $660 million to develop a major franchise.
What the fuck? It provided an example of one AAA game. The development budget value could range between 90 million and 180 million, whereas the marketing budget could range between 50 million to 150 million. Oh, and 150 million. This publisher also submitted that one of its major franchises development costs reached $660 million, in marketing costs peaked at almost $550 million, dude. Finally, another publisher estimated that its development costs for a seasonal update for one of its first-party titles ranged from approximately $50 million to $65 million. Holy shit. That's for a seasonal update. That's just for an update. Jesus fucking Christ. Holy shit, dude. Thank you for the follow. Welcome. I don't know, man. I don't know, it's kind of crazy in my personal opinion. How much development has like skyrocketed or so to make a game, you know? It's like movie levels of budget. Yeah, it's like there's no way that something like this can cost this much. I just can't wrap my head around it. It's like there's no way something like this can like cost that much, because look at indie developers, you know? Indie developers don't use this much money or so to like to create a game. You know, they don't cost over three, you know, three of the digits in millions, you know?
while marketing cost almost $550 million, meaning that total budgets for AAA games can reach almost $1 billion and even exceed this huge figure. So yes, Suicide Squad, which is played by 130 people, probably has an inflated budget. It seems that every next big budget game is a lottery. Of course, companies want to reduce and avoid all possible risks, so again, they rely on already popular franchises and stick to what most players are familiar with, what the audience is used to. On the one hand, it sounds safe, but is it really so? To make a game worth hundreds of millions of dollars safe and potentially attractive to a large audience, studios have to simplify and dumb down a lot of things. They cannot take risks or experiment. They have to stick to what has proven to be effective. That's a huge reason why indie games like Helldivers 2 or Lethal Company are much better at innovating on a popular formula or giving us something completely new. This conditional safety has led us to the fact that some Call of Duty or Battlefield or any other popular franchises do not change at all from year to year. But this is not cool. Gamers like to be surprised. Let's see what developers have been surprising us with over the past couple of years. Nothing. I'm such an old fart that I remember the PS3 era and even the PS2 era when AAA games represented a certain level of quality in terms of technical achievements as well as gameplay. You got a polished product that had a certain level of content. Now we can't say that anymore, and I would even say that most AAA games are not even worth it, especially at the release stage when there are indie games that are much more enjoyable. And here we can take a look at a few specific reasons why, and the first one is an unnecessary open world. So today, AAA means a huge open world. This is done.
It feels like almost every single game has to have an open world. It just has to, apparently.
So that game publishers can justify the technical progress and content of the game, which deserves a price of $60 to $70. However, when a game has an overwhelming open world, it can do more harm than good, especially when the open world adds nothing to the gameplay itself.
Yep.
If this huge map doesn't help with the gameplay cycle, not only increases the distances you need to travel.
I miss sandboxes. I miss linear. Sometimes linear. That's why when I played Black Myth Wukong, right? Like, it opens up like a little bit more at the end, but it's more like a zone. It's more like a zone type of thing. But it's mostly been linear, going to checkpoint to checkpoint, you know?
Travel to get from point A to point B, then it's just a hindrance, not an advantage. There are games that use the open world to their advantage, such as Metal Gear Solid 5 or Skyrim. And then there are worlds, like the latest Ubisoft games, that seem empty and have rather stupid NPCs. Instead of having a world that you can explore, you're stuck with a bunch of quests and missions that have repetitive and boring formats. They will simply be multiplied to increase the hours to complete to justify the high prices of these games. But this is not the only thing that leads to their unjustified pricing. Technological advances in graphics and gameplay often lead to higher prices. With that in mind, when you play a game like Stray that costs $30, is it half as much fun as playing the new Call of Duty for $70? I would say no. We live in a time when it is getting easier and easier to create video games. I see games like Project Wingman, developed by just a few people, giving franchises like Ace Combat a run for their money. So, aside from the fact that a slight improvement in graphics costs twice as much, I think most people would agree that AAA games are overpriced. But even with such high and unjustified prices, they still have the nerve to shove in microtransactions. For many games, it seems that gameplay has taken a backseat to loot boxes and battle passes. EA is known for its sports games such as FIFA and Madden, where new versions use the same gameplay and sometimes even contain bugs from games.
I wonder, did Battle Pass also started with Fortnite as well, right? I think so. And I think the loot boxes came from, where was the origins of loot boxes? Was it actually from Overwatch, or was it from a different game? I don't really remember the origins of loot boxes and battle passes.
Those companies ain't no consultants, not naming anything. Sweet Baby Incorporated cause ain't no company is gonna allow a bunch of consultants to write new storyboards for them. They're not writers, devs, designers, and animators. They're consultants.
Well, that's what they call themselves at the end of the day. So surely a gotcha. I feel like it might be from a gotcha game, probably, at least for the loot boxes stuff. I wouldn't be surprised. Let me see. Counter-Strike, right, Counter-Strike. Yeah, I remember that. The loot box originated in Asia, whereas developers used them to increase player engagement. And first known loot boxes were in the Japanese game MapleStory in 2004 and the Chinese game ZT Online. So that's where the origin was technically where loot boxes came from. It's from the Asia territory. And it's from MapleStory. So MapleStory, you know, they learned it from Asia and then they implemented it in their Japanese game. And then it started coming over to the West as well afterwards, seeing how much money they were making, you know, because people have so much money they like to spend. Interesting. Let me see. The Battle Pass was first introduced in 2013 by Valve Corporation for the game Dota 2. So that was where the origins of Battle Passes came from. I see, I see. So it wasn't even Fortnite, but they definitely made it popular and exploded in popularity. Interesting. So Dota 2 and then freaking MapleStory. Well, not really MapleStory. It was more like in the Asia territory, but MapleStory and Dota 2 were the origins, like the forefathers of basically for all of this, all of the what we basically have now these days. And apparently, like now people are okay with it. You know, like you don't have to buy the battle pass. You know, but I'm like, yeah, but like back in the old days, we used to unlock like cool like awesome skins, you know, like doing the grinding and you know, like, oh, you have to beat this secret boss or something, or you have to do this specific challenge or something like that, you know. But now it's just like, oh no, you can just buy it, you know. That's like one of the things I also criticize too about Monster Hunter, right? Because back then Monster Hunter had like crazy collaborations and all this other shit, you know. But now it's just like, oh, you just gotta pay, you know, $2.99, $5.99, $4.99 or whatever, you know. I'm like, it's fine, right? It's to support the developers, but I wish it would be a little bit separate compared to, compared to, I would have loved to have like, maybe like the crazy little stuffed animal or something like that, the stuffed animal skin or so from Monster Hunter Rise in the game itself, where you have to beat up like, I don't know, maybe like a stuffed animal monster or something, you know, and then just have something completely different or so in the shop, you know. I don't know. That's just me though. But it's free to play.
As an Asian, I'm sorry that these greedy bastards learned the scamming tactic from our casinos.
Yeah, it definitely, it started from Asia and then infested into Japan, and then it started infesting towards the western side because of the money that, they were witnessing or so over there on the other side of the world, how much they were making or so from these loot boxes and everything, so.
Released years ago. In such cases, you pay not only for a low quality game, but also for microtransactions to get at least some normal gaming experience. Unfortunately, for companies such as EA and Blizzard, this is a really successful strategy because it leads to higher profits and a revenue stream that offers better long-term prospects. Because of this, the trend is not likely to stop anytime soon, making AAA games a less promising proposition for gamers today. But when you pay for a game and shell out $60 or more, you usually expect to get a finished game. However, this is not always the case. I don't need to explain to you right now how terrible the state of games has been in the recent years. It's becoming more and more common for a game to be released and then improved over the years. This gives companies two advantages. First, the ability to release a part of the game and then add the rest over time, as well as to receive recurring revenue from gamers in the form of add-ons and other items that can be purchased. Secondly, publishers believe that any problems found during the launch can be immediately fixed later with patches. This means that the first players actually act as testers of the game and do some of the work that the developers should have done for them. From a business perspective, I find this extremely insightful and pragmatic. From a gamer's point of view, I would consider it a ripoff if I bought an unfinished game and was used as free labor. So, of course, after this attitude towards the audience, many gamers are increasingly focusing their attention on independent developers and small studios. There are many games that I find much more enjoyable than many of the AAA games I've played.
There's a lot of good JRPGs as indies now these days, you know? Collabs are harder to do these days. These licensing fees are no joke after learning Marvel Rivals. Almost got canned for it. And Marvel Spider-Man game reduced to studio profits. Yeah, I know. That's probably one of the biggest things too, as well. Is like they have to buy the licenses fee for it, so they have to make some kind of money specifically in return. But I feel like they can do it. Like they can give something like a crazy wacky collaboration. But even then, right? What was it like I know they can do wacky collaborations, but they can also like have something on the side to sell too as well. It would just have to be something different and unique or so, you know? Like it can still be like a skin for a gun or like for a weapon or an armor set or something, but then have something on the inside or so, right? That you can earn, and you know you can earn it and everything like that, you know?
Undertale, which you most likely haven't heard of, is a prime example of a game that subverts RPG.
Like, look, don't get me wrong, right? I know that there's been really good collaborations in Monster Hunter World, right? Because, you know, I'm pretty much comparing Monster Hunter World and I assume Wilds will probably have these collaborations, right? We did have some good collaborations, but we didn't have any of like crazy, wacky, fun collaborations compared to the older games, you know? Like the older games were definitely like the more funner side, you know? Before I go, when Fortnite's gonna close their servers, it's gonna be one of the biggest tragedies of our time, with all the money players buying skins with because they never get it again. Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, right? If you buy digital goods, you know, expect for it to be taken away from you, you know, obviously.
Tropes. Signalis, which I recently played, manages to recreate the creepiness of Silent Hill 2 while doing its own unique thing. But what do all these games have in common that I think is missing from big budget games? The answer is that these games have a voice. While a AAA game has a lot of developers, designers, and performers, it can often turn into a messy mess with too many cooks. Indie games don't suffer from this, and as a result, they don't have an identity crisis, and they usually have a clear game cycle that has been well.
I saw that this game was really good too. Signalis was good. This one was also really good too as well.
Tested on a fundamental level. So the AAA industry continues to fall, desperately grasping at the few handles they can grab to slow the fall. Fortunately, for many large companies in this business, it is already too late. While these companies are trying to put on a strong face among the opposition they face, people like me, who know full well how long they have been scraping the bottom of the barrel, know how close their end is. These companies are lying and cheating their customers in a desperate attempt to milk them for as much money as possible to save themselves and satisfy their investors. They have begun to see that the bottomless well of money they once drew from does in fact have a bottom, and that it is much shallower than they expected. Like a cornered animal, the AAA industry has tried
even this game was really good too as well, so compared to most of the AAA scene, you know? Most time Monster Hunter do collabs with Capcom, so their own IP. Yeah. I don't mind that at all, but I just want the collabs to be like crazy and funky, you know? Like have a you know, for those who don't know, right? We had like in the one of the older games specifically, because we saw videos or so of like older collabs of Monster Hunter. They had freaking they had a freaking statue or so as a greatsword. An actual like statue. Like a statue that you can wield around and smack people with, you know?
Capitalize on the social justice movement led by politically correct people. Of course, this has failed spectacularly, sliding them even further down the slope of ruin. It has damaged their reputation beyond repair.
What a good video. What a very good video. Yeah, this channel just randomly popped up. Radical Cap. Very interesting video indeed. Yeah. I do have to say, definitely, like, optimization for games has been pretty terrible, and then the degrading or so of them, you know, has been also been pretty bad. Honestly. I don't know. It might probably get, you know, there are some developable. We are getting, like, what, the Chinese devs or so kind of picking up the slack or so from some of the Western devs. Did you watch what happened to Warner Brothers Studios? Yeah, we actually did. We watched one of the videos that you posted in the React channel, I think. If I remember correctly, I think we watched it. Hopefully, we did actually. So, didn't Frontiers or one of them have a Hatsune Miku collab? It was Frontier. Frontier had a Hatsune Miku collab. I would love to see a Hatsune Miku collab come in Monster Hunter. I think it would be pretty cool. Having a hunting horn play the freaking play the Hatsune Miku song or so, like da 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 da, you know, from back in the old days. I thought that was pretty cool, personally. Yeah, I sometimes get random videos or so on my recommended feed, but yeah. Anyways, that's the end of the video. You guys can comment, like, subscribe, do all that fancy jazzy stuff. And yeah, it's just pretty terrible how a lot of games back, like, what, 10 years ago, 10, 11, 12 years ago were a lot more better, either optimized very well, or the AAA scene was just was much more in a healthier place compared to how it is now. But, you know, money drives everything at the end of the day. Well, that's the end of the video, and peace.